February 14, 1969, 9:47 p.m., Quang Nam Province, South Vietnam, 12 kilometers west of Da Nang. 20-year-old Corporal Charles Mawhinney lies motionless in dense vegetation on the bank of a shallow stream. His pulse 50 beats per minute. This isn't fear. This is his normal rhythm. Beside him, a spotter, another young Marine, barely visible in the darkness. Through the Redfield 3 to 9x scope on his M40 rifle, caliber 7.62 millimeters, he sees something that will force him to do the impossible. 37 North Vietnamese Army soldiers are crossing the stream. They move confidently, too confidently. Their destination, a U.S. Marine base, 3 kilometers away, where his brothers are sleeping. Mawhinney has 30 seconds before the platoon exits the kill zone. He has 20 rounds in his magazine. The enemy has twice that number. He takes a breath, holds it between heartbeats, and begins firing. What happens in the next 30 seconds will go down in sniper history as one of the deadliest single operations of the Vietnam War. 16 shots, 16 headshots, not a single miss. Who is this man? And how did a hunter from a small Oregon town become what they would later call the deadliest sniper in United States Marine Corps history? Charles Benjamin Mawhinney was born February 23, 1949, in Lakeview, Oregon, a tiny town of 2,000 people tucked away on the Nevada border, a place where hunting isn't a hobby, it's a way of life. From age 6, his father took him into the woods. Mawhinney learned patience, stillness, how to read the wind, and estimate distance by eye. By 15, he could drop a deer at 300 yards with an old bolt-action rifle and iron sights. "I was just a country kid who could shoot pretty good," he'd say decades later. But that's the modesty typical of a man who would make history. At 18, in 1967, Mawhinney enlisted in the United States Marine Corps. The Vietnam War was escalating. America needed soldiers, lots of soldiers. His teenage years in Lakeview had been filled with cars, motorcycles, shooting guns, and chasing girls. When his behavior got him into hot water at home, the Marines offered him a way out.
Mawhinney completed basic training at San Diego. Instructors quickly noticed his shooting abilities, but he didn't become a sniper immediately. In May 1968, 19-year-old Private First Class Mawhinney arrived in South Vietnam. He was assigned to the Scout Sniper Platoon at 5th Marine Regiment Headquarters based in An Hoa, a remote village in Quang Nam Province. The first 3 months, he was a regular rifleman, carried a standard M16, went on patrols, learned to survive in jungles where humidity hit 90% and temperatures climbed to 105 degrees Fahrenheit. In August 1968, something happened that would change everything. A sniper in the platoon needed a spotter, a second man who helps with observation, calculates distances, and watches the sniper's back. Mawhinney volunteered. A month later, when that sniper completed his tour and returned home, they handed Mawhinney his rifle, the M40.
The M40 isn't just a rifle. It's a modified version of the civilian Remington 40X, converted specifically for Marine Corps snipers in 1966. Bolt action, caliber 7.62 by 51 millimeter NATO, 5-round magazine, effective range 800 meters. Mawhinney's M40 was fitted with a Redfield 3.9x AccuRange optical scope, one of the best scopes of that era, with variable magnification from 3 to 9 times.
In darkness, he used a different weapon, the M14 semi-automatic rifle, with a starlight scope, an early version of night vision. The starlight scope was revolutionary technology for 1968. It amplified ambient light, stars, moon by 30,000 times, turning night into greenish twilight. Enemy soldiers, accustomed to moving in darkness, suddenly became visible. Sniper work in Vietnam wasn't about heroic firefights. It was patience bordering on meditation and sudden, surgically precise lethality. Mawhinney performed several types of missions. Sometimes he'd spend all night lying on the base perimeter with his nightscope, watching the approaches. Sometimes he'd accompany infantry patrols, ready to provide long-range support. But most often, he and his spotter would go into the jungle alone for 2 or 3 days. They'd find a good position, overlooking a trail, river crossing, or clearing, bury themselves in vegetation, camouflage with leaves, and wait, sometimes for hours, sometimes for days. I could lie still for so long that insects would crawl on me and I wouldn't even blink, Mawhinney recalled. Once, a small snake crawled across his leg. He didn't move. Movement means death. His resting heart rate was 50 beats per minute. That's a gift of nature for a sniper. A slower pulse means less chest movement when breathing, a more stable scope. Mawhinney learned to shoot between heartbeats, in moments of absolute bodily calm. Most of my targets I killed with one shot, he said. 1 bullet, 1 life. That's the sniper's rule. A second shot gives away your position. Many snipers experience moral anguish looking at people through a scope. Mawhinney didn't. It was the ultimate hunting trip, he admitted to the Los Angeles Times years later. A man hunting another man who was hunting me. Don't talk to me about hunting lions or elephants. They don't fight back with rifles and scopes. I just loved. This isn't sadism. It's the practicality of a soldier who understands the reality of war. His rules were simple. If they had a weapon, they were going down. In 16 months in Vietnam, he killed only 1 unarmed man, an NVA paymaster, at 900 yards. Everyone else was an armed combatant. By February 1969, by that Valentine's Day, Corporal Mawhinney already had 87 confirmed kills to his name, but his most famous operation was still ahead. February 14th, 1969, started like any other day in hell. An Hoa Base was a fortified perimeter of barbed wire, minefields, and bunkers in the heart of enemy-controlled territory. By 10 a.m., the temperature hit 100 degrees. Humidity suffocated like a wet blanket. Mawhinney received his assignment at the 9:30 briefing. Intelligence reported possible NVA movement west of Da Nang. Position: a shallow stream 12 kilometers from base that the enemy used as a crossing point when moving south. Mission: observation and elimination of targets of opportunity. Standard sniper mission. At 11 a.m., Mawhinney and his spotter, a private first class whose name wasn't preserved in records, began preparation. Weapons check. The M40 was meticulously cleaned. Scope calibrated. Mawhinney also took the M14 with starlight scope in case the operation extended into darkness. Ammunition load: 40 rounds of 7.62 millimeters for the M40, 100 rounds for the M14, 2 canteens of water, sea rations for 2 days, PRC-25 radio, communication with base, area map, compass. Camouflage was critical. Mawhinney applied green-brown paint to his face and hands, breaking up contours, attached local vegetation to his helmet and load-bearing vest. Goal: blend into the jungle so completely that the enemy could pass within 10 feet and not see him. A Vietnamese jungle was a separate enemy. Vegetation so thick that visibility rarely exceeded 50 feet. Every step required caution. A branch snapping underfoot could cost your life. The ground was muddy, slippery. Leeches attached themselves to skin at every opportunity. Mawhinney moved methodically. 5 steps. Stop. Listen. Scan the sector ahead. Another 5 steps. It was mentally exhausting, but it kept you alive. By 4:30 p.m., they reached the position. The stream was about 60 feet wide, knee-deep. Perfect crossing point. On the opposite bank, a trail disappeared into the jungle, toward NVA positions. Mawhinney chose the ambush site. Dense brush 50 feet from the bank, a slight elevation providing a 200-meter view along the stream. Distance to the center of the crossing, 120 yards. For a sniper of his caliber, that was point-blank range.
The sun sets fast in the tropics. 20 minutes from sunset to total darkness. By 8 p.m., the jungle plunged into blackness. Mawhinney pulled out the M14 with starlight scope. He switched on the scope. The world turned shades of green. The stream became a silver ribbon. Trees became dark silhouettes against the night sky. 9:15 p.m. Sound. Mawhinney froze. Not jungle sounds, monkeys, birds, falling branches. These were human voices, distant, maybe 1,000 feet upstream. The enemy was moving without much caution, meaning they considered this territory safe. Mawhinney slowly, millimeter by millimeter, rotated his rifle toward the sound. A sudden movement could give away the position. A glint of metal, rustling foliage. 9:38 p.m. First figures appeared on the bank. Through the starlight scope, Mawhinney saw them clearly. North Vietnamese Army soldiers, uniforms with distinctive tropical helmets, AK-47s at the ready. They moved in column, combat formation for marching through rear areas. Mawhinney counted them. The spotter whispered into the radio, transmitting data to base. 10, 15, 20, 30, 35, 37 men. An NVA platoon, full strength, direction of movement, south, toward American positions. The platoon commander, an officer with a pistol on his belt, gave an order. Soldiers began crossing. They didn't wait. Didn't send scouts forward, just entered the water and started crossing. That was a mistake, the last mistake of their lives. Mawhinney assessed the situation in a second. 37 enemies. They were crossing the stream, spread over 150 feet. He had 20 rounds in his M14 magazine, 3 more magazines in his vest. Semi-automatic fire, in darkness. The math was simple and brutal. He had to shoot fast before they reached the opposite bank and disappeared into the jungle. He had 30 seconds, maybe 45. The spotter whispered, "Open fire." Mawhinney didn't answer. He was already aiming. The crosshairs centered on the head of a soldier in the middle of the stream. Range 120 yards. Almost no wind. Air temperature dropping, but not critical for ballistics at this distance. Mawhinney inhaled, slow, controlled. Exhaled halfway, held his breath, felt his heartbeat. 1, 2. Between the second and third beat, his finger squeezed the trigger. Crack. The M14 bolt cycled back, ejecting the casing. A new round chambered automatically, semi-automatic. The first soldier dropped. Even at distance, in the dark, Mawhinney saw the body collapse into the water. Headshot. The other NVA soldiers froze for a second. The human brain doesn't instantly process unexpected danger. That second cost them their lives. Second shot, soldier left of the first, down. Third shot, soldier to the right, down. Now the enemy reacted. Screams,
panic. They scattered in different directions, some toward the bank they came from, some forward toward the opposite bank. Some dropped into the water, trying to take cover. Mawhinney didn't stop. Fourth shot, fifth, sixth. Each 7.62 millimeter bullet, weighing 150 grains, traveled at 2,600 feet per second. At 120 yards, it reached the target in 0.12 seconds. A headshot meant instant death. The bullet penetrated the skull, destroyed the brain, exited the other side, carrying fragments of bone and tissue. Seventh shot, eighth, ninth. Mawhinney worked methodically. He didn't aim at the nearest targets. They were already panicking. He aimed at those trying to reach the bank, those who in seconds would disappear into the jungle and escape, those who posed a threat to his brothers at the base. Through the starlight scope, he saw every detail, faces twisted in terror, water splashing as bodies fell, dark spots of blood, black in the green light of the scope. 10th shot, 11th, 12th, bodies floated downstream. I could see the bodies floating down the river, he'd say later. 13th, 14th, 15th, 16th. Mawhinney stopped firing. 16 shots. 16 headshots. Not a single miss. 30 seconds from first to last shot. The survivors, about 20 men, ran back the way they came. They didn't try to return fire, didn't organize a counterattack. They just ran. This was no longer a platoon. This was a mob of terrified men who just watched half their comrades killed by an invisible enemy in half a minute. Mawhinney didn't pursue them with fire. He was a sniper, not an executioner. His mission was complete. The threat was neutralized. The NVA platoon no longer posed danger to the Marine base. He slowly lowered his rifle, breathed, pulse still 50 beats per minute, hands steady, no adrenaline, no shaking, just a job well done. The spotter looked at him with wide eyes. He'd just witnessed one man destroy half an enemy platoon in the time it takes to tie your boots. Contact complete, Mawhinney radioed to base, voice calm, businesslike. 16 confirmed. Remainder retreated, holding position. On the other end, a second of silence. Then, repeat last? 16? Confirmed. 1-6 in 30 seconds. Mawhinney and his spotter remained in position until dawn. They didn't move, didn't leave cover. The enemy might return with reinforcements or send their own sniper. Moving at night in the jungle was a way to step on a tripwire or get hit by friendly fire. At 5:45 a.m., as the jungle began to lighten, Mawhinney carefully rose. Every muscle stiff after 8 hours of immobility, the price of the profession. They slowly, weapons ready, descended to the stream. The sight that greeted them spoke for itself. 16 bodies floating in the water or lying on the bank, all with gunshot wounds to the head. The water was stained red. Mawhinney methodically checked each body. This wasn't cruelty, it was protocol. Snipers had to confirm kills for official records. He documented type of enemy weapons, AK-47s, 2 RPD machine guns, rank insignia, documents. One of the dead was an Mawhinney and his spotter remained in position until dawn. They didn't move, didn't leave cover. The enemy might return with reinforcements or send their own snipers. Moving at night in the jungle was a way to step on a tripwire or get hit by friendly fire. At 5:45 a.m., as the jungle began to lighten, Mawhinney carefully rose, every muscle stiff after 8 hours of immobility, the price of the profession. They slowly, weapons ready, descended to the stream. The sight that greeted them spoke for itself. 16 bodies floating in the water, or lying on the bank, all with gunshot wounds to the head. The water was stained red. Mawhinney methodically checked each body. This wasn't cruelty, it was protocol. Snipers had to confirm kills for official records. He documented type of enemy weapons, AK-47s, 2 RPD machine guns, rank insignia, documents. One of the dead was an NVA lieutenant, the platoon commander. In his map case was a map with marked American positions. Mawhinney transmitted this information to intelligence. It would save lives. Radio call. Base, this is Mawhinney. 16 confirmed. All enemy combatants. Documents recovered, requesting extraction. By 8 a.m., a helicopter picked them up. On the flight back to base, the pilot looked at Mawhinney with respect, mixed with fear. Word of the night operation had already spread through radio networks. At An Hoa Base, the company commander called Mawhinney for an operational debrief. The room was full of officers. Everyone wanted to hear how it happened. Mawhinney recounted it without emotion, distance, visibility, sequence of shots, result. He didn't brag, just stated facts. One officer asked, "Corporal, how do you feel about this?" Mawhinney thought for a second. "I did my job, sir. Those men were going to kill Marines. Now they won't." This wasn't bravado. This was the philosophy of a soldier who understood the reality of war. Every enemy he killed meant American lives saved. Marines who would return home to their families. "I never looked at what I was doing as killing," he'd say years later. "I looked at it as saving lives. Every enemy I killed couldn't kill my brothers. That's what I thought about."
The February 14 operation had effects far beyond 16 dead soldiers. The survivors from that NVA platoon told their story. In darkness, invisible enemy, 16 comrades killed in seconds. Nobody even understood where the shooting came from. This is exactly the effect snipers have on the enemy. One sniper can demoralize an entire company. Soldiers start fearing to leave cover. Commanders postpone operations. Morale crumbled. Snipers save lives by sapping the enemy's will to fight, Mawhinney explained in interviews. "I wasn't just killing enemies. I was making the rest afraid, and a frightened enemy makes mistake." After the Valentine's Day operation, Mawhinney continued serving for another 8 months. He worked with different units, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Battalions of the 5th Regiment, collaborated with South Korean Marines and Force Recon, spent most of his time with Delta Company, 1st Battalion, 5th Marines. By October 1969, when his tour ended, Mawhinney's count stood at 103 confirmed kills. Confirmed meant there was a witness or physical proof. Probable kills, another 216. These were shots after which the enemy fell, but the body wasn't found, or confirmation was impossible due to tactical circumstances. For comparison, legendary Carlos Hathcock, who was considered the record holder, had 93 confirmed kills. Mawhinney had surpassed him by 10, but nobody knew. On average, Mawhinney killed 4 enemies every 5 days for 16 months. This isn't just statistics. These are lives saved, attacks prevented, brothers who returned home. He received the Bronze Star with Combat Valor, Navy Commendation Medal with Combat Valor, Navy Achievement Medal, and the Purple Heart with 2 oak leaf clusters for wounds received in combat. Serious decorations, but his sniper achievements weren't officially publicized. In March 1970, 20-year-old Sergeant Charles Mawhinney left Vietnam and returned to the United States.
At home, Mawhinney did something that seemed incredible. He stayed silent. He didn't tell his family about his sniper work, didn't tell friends. Even his wife, when he married, he didn't reveal details of his service for years. His loved ones knew he'd been in Vietnam, but had no idea of the scale of his actions. "Why? I just didn't see any reason to talk about it," he explained. "It was war. I did a job, came home, life goes on." This wasn't modesty. This was a way to cope with trauma. Many Vietnam veterans suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder. Mawhinney chose the path of silence and normalcy. He got a job with the U.S. Forest Service, got married, had 3 sons. He lived a quiet life in Baker City, Oregon, a small town where everyone knew each other, but nobody knew their neighbor was the deadliest sniper in Marine Corps history. Years passed. 10, 15, 20.
In 1991, something happened that changed everything. Joseph Ward, a former Marine who'd served as a spotter for snipers in Vietnam, published a book titled Dear Mom, A Sniper's Vietnam. In the book, he mentioned Chuck Mawhinney and his record kill count, 101 confirmed, according to Ward's data. Mawhinney didn't know about the book. He continued working for the Forest Service, raising children, living an ordinary life. In 1996, writer Peter Senich read Ward's book. He was skeptical of the numbers. 101 seemed incredible. Senich decided to verify. He requested official Marine Corps records and discovered that Ward was wrong. Not 101, 103 confirmed kills, plus 216 probable. Charles Mawhinney wasn't just a sniper. He was the deadliest sniper in United States Marine Corps history. He'd broken Carlos Hathcock's record, but nobody knew for 27 years. Senich published an article in Precision Shooting magazine in 1996. The story exploded. Military journalists tracked down Mawhinney, called him at home, wanted interviews. Mawhinney was shocked. He'd lived 26 years in silence. Now the whole world wanted to hear his story. At first, he refused to talk, but gradually he understood that his story could be useful. Young snipers could learn from his experience. Society could understand the reality of war. It's an opportunity for me to get some recognition for a lot of the Vietnam vets that didn't receive any recognition, he told the Bay City Herald. We were all there together. If I have to take recognition for it, that's okay, because every time I talk to someone, I can talk about the vets. It gives me an opportunity to talk about what a great job they did.
From the late 1990s, Mawhinney began speaking at events. Starting in 2006, he visited the Marine Corps Scout Sniper School at Camp Pendleton, telling students about tactics, psychology, patience. Practice, practice, and more practice was his main advice. Talent is nothing without work. The History Channel approached him for the documentary Sniper, Anatomy of the Kill. They reconstructed his famous long-distance headshot. Strider Knives created a knife named in his honor. This knife is awarded to the top graduating student from each USMC Scout Sniper School class at Camp Pendleton, a symbol of excellence. Mawhinney spent his final years in Baker City, Oregon. He avoided fame, preferring a quiet life with family and grandchildren. But the sniper community treated him as a living legend. February 12, 2024, Charles Chuck Mawhinney died at the age of 74. The cause of death wasn't disclosed, but he suffered from consequences of Vietnam service. Wounds, Agent Orange exposure,
and psychological trauma. Obituaries appeared in all major military publications: Marine Corps Times, New York Times, military forums, all told the story of a man who 56 years ago, in 30 seconds, changed the outcome of a battle in the jungles of Vietnam. Chuck Mawhinney's story is more than a kill record. It's a lesson about the nature of war, about the role of the individual in conflict, about how modesty and professionalism matter more than glory. His February 14, 1969 operation remains one of the most impressive sniper operations in military history. 16 shots, 16 hits, 30 seconds, in darkness, under pressure. This wasn't luck. This was skill perfected by years of practice. This was calm that can't be taught, only developed. This was dedication to duty that placed brothers' lives above personal safety. Today, at Marine Corps Scout Sniper School, students learn Mawhinney's story, not to glorify killing, but to show what it means to be a professional. Patience, discipline, precision, responsibility. Every sniper who receives a Strider knife engraved Chuck Mawhinney knows this isn't just an award. It's a reminder of the standard of a man who did the impossible and spent 50 years in humility.
Chuck Mawhinney's story isn't a Hollywood blockbuster. It's the real life of a man who at 19 found himself in the hell of war and performed his job with cold professionalism, saving his brothers' lives. If this story moved you, hit that like button. It helps YouTube's algorithm show this video to others interested in real military history. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories about forgotten heroes whose deeds deserve to be remembered. Now, a question for you. Why do you think Mawhinney stayed silent for 27 years about his achievements? Was it modesty, trauma, or something else? Write in the comments. I'm interested in your opinion.